Hello everyone, I'm Malvika and I'm excited to welcome you all in my demo session on prevention of sexual harassment of women at workplace, which is also known as POSH. So before we dive into this training session, let me give you a brief about myself. I am a practicing chartered accountant and I became a POSH consultant back in the year 2021 when I did my certification course from Institute of Company Secretary of India, which made me a certified trainer. And I've trained more than 5,000 employees till date and have given enormous training sessions to internal committee of various entities and even an external member to some of the entities as well. So let's get started with today's training session. We have designed today's training session we have designed today's training section by keeping in mind to explain you guys what constitutes sexual harassment at workplace, what's the legal framework in place, and what steps can be taken in order to provide a safe and respectful working environment to all the employees in an organization. Today, we'll be covering about some of the important aspects of the law, some of the important provisions of law, and we will be talking about some of the case studies on in order to understand more about the POSH Act. So I would request you all to participate in this session because I want to make it an interactive training session, and I want to give you a disclaimer at the same time that if any one of you is asking any question, sharing any experience, giving any insight of what they feel about this whole training or about sexual harassment at workplace, let's not judge each other and post this session. It's a request, it's a deep request, it's a sincere request from me as a trainer to all of you as an audience. Thank you so much for respecting me. Thank you so much. So let's understand our rights and responsibility as an employee and as a good corporate citizen, which we need to be. So let's get started with today's training session. Moving on to another slide. So why are we taking this training? As a listed public entity, it's a core legal responsibility. See, you need to understand as an entity, it's a core responsibility, it's a legal responsibility because when there's a non-compliance, when a non-compliance happens, so there is a fine of rupees 50,000 which an employer needs to pay when in case they are not complying with the provisions of the POSH Act. As an employee, you share the responsibility. And as an internal committee, you get to set the vision for safety. So you understand from the three perspectives as a company, as an employee, as an IC member, this training session is essential for three of you in general. Is there is a responsibility, there's a role in place. So you can see from this slide that one thing leads to the another. There's a chain reaction happening. POSH policy is part of the HR procedure, which is part of governance structure. So it's all there in order to create an organization culture, which ultimately leads to a brand reputation. So remember that it's essential for a holistic brand building of an organization. Why we need to, comply with POSH, why we as an employer are, taking up such training sessions for our employees, why the employees are attending such training sessions, why we IC are attending these training sessions. And it's just so that we can build a good holistic brand, we can build a good working environment, we can build a good working safe workspace for each one of us. So there's a role and responsibility in place. There's one thing that I would like to share with you all, which is actually essential, that the high cost of sexual harassment are evident from employee outrage to loss of worker productivity and employee attrition. One study, please listen carefully, one study estimated that for each employee who was sexually harassed, the company lost an average of 22,500 USD in cost associated with just loss of productivity. So you guys as employees can understand what leads to sexual harassment. There's loss of productivity, there's an emotional stress. So company loses so much. So you need to understand the severity, the gravity of this whole act. Why we are taking up these employee awareness sessions. There's a reason behind. So moving on to the other slide. what is sexual harassment? So most importantly, in order to, know about this act, know about the rights and responsibility, you need to know what is sexual harassment. The first and the most important step for prevention is recognition. Workplace sexual harassment is a behavior that's defined. Now, read with me carefully. Unwelcome. It's sexual in nature, a subjective experience, and the impact and not the intent is what matters and often occurs in a matrix of power, whether directly or by implication. So these are the, most important points which we have highlighted in our definition over here, which we'll be breaking down in our further slides. So first and foremostly, there has to be a behavior which is unwelcome in nature, that makes you feel uncomfortable, and has to be a sexual, nature, a sexual behavior. So I'll give you an example. Like I'm standing, in a corridor of my workspace, and there is a male colleague who comes up to me and touches on my cheek, looks at me, and gives me a stare. So that makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like it. I back on. I go like two hand distance away from that particular employee. Even a touch, a look, a stare can make you feel uncomfortable. That can give you an unwelcoming experience or an unwelcome behavior, uncomfortable thing that makes you feel that you don't like it. Your body language, your face, everything will be reflected of what you felt, what you experienced. Why we are calling it a subjective experience is it depends on how a person perceives, how a person felt post that experience. It's the impact and not the intent is what matters. See, most importantly, what you felt after that experience, how you perceived it, what you felt, what was going on in your mind, you didn't like it, is what matters. Not the intention of the person who came up to you and touched you or gave you a look. It's important of how you felt when that particular incident happened with you. That only, experience what you felt is, called as sexual harassment at workplace. So, in case if at any given point you experience sexual harassment, you have an internal committee in place to whom you can go up and file a complaint of. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have a great day.